Welcome back to McNulty's Book Corral. Today we're going to be answering some of the questions that I received from a post that I put on one of the tabs on this channel offering to answer questions. And so I did receive a few questions and I thought I'd answer them for you today. And I only received one response from a booktuber as far as I know. The other responses and questions I received came from viewers. At least I believe that's the case, because when they're emailing, they didn't always identify themselves. So I have some, and I'm not going to give you their emails, but you know who you are in any event. So here we go. Kevin Toll sent me some great questions here. What are your favorite genres, and are there any genres that you avoid? That is an excellent question. And first off, my favorite genres would be westerns, vintage science fiction, fantasy, mystery. I love private eye novels. Chandler to Sarah Paretsky, let's say, look at it that way. I'll be covering Sarah Paretsky in the near future here, and I'm going to be covering her further down the line, because I really like Sarah's books and I haven't really done her justice yet. I hope to do that. Pretty much I'll read anything though. I as you can tell from this channel, I really look at everything, but I would say mysteries, westerns, mysteries, some vintage science fiction. But then we have a tricky part of his question is, if you were whisked away to a desert island and could only take 3 books with you, which books would they be? That's actually quite easy for me. It would be Moby Dick by Herman Melville, Raintree County by Ross Lockridge Jr., and the complete works of William Shakespeare. And that's what I need on that island. But I thought that was great, Kevin. Thank you very much, especially that little part there where you're talking about what genres would you avoid. I want to answer that now, too. I avoid modern horror, generally. Everything that I'm seeing in modern horror is a rehash of H.P. Lovecraft. And it's at pandemic level. And I'm sure some of them are very good. The ones I've read some, they're very good. But a lot of it's just the same old, taking off on the mythology and supernatural aspects of Lovecraft's big giant octopus monster. I don't know what else to call it. And going from there, and some of it isn't very well done. There's really a lot of it out there. That seems to be the focus of horror writers, is to emulate Lovecraft instead of coming up with something original. So I avoid modern horror, generally speaking. I avoid most fantasy, with the exception of a few writers that I've covered here. Excuse me. There's a couple that I've covered recently, and you can go back and look at those. But I avoid science fiction, horror, and fantasy. Science fiction I avoid because it's really, vintage science fiction is great, the classic stuff, but it's all been done. There are very few writers today putting out science fiction that I have an interest in. I just don't see it. So those were Kevin's questions. Great job, Kevin. Thank you. You made me think on that. All right, then I had an email from Johnny49. Johnny, I don't know what that is. I don't know who you are, Johnny, but so forgive me. But actually, yours is not a question. It is, well, let me just read it to you. This is not a question, but I think it's inappropriate of you to drink alcohol on camera. It's a bad influence on children. You're absolutely correct. Children should not be watching my channel. As a matter of fact, I use the YouTube template to flag my channel as not for children. 3 words. Every single episode, even if it covers juvenile fiction, my episodes are not for children. My channel is out there for adults to look at and decide for themselves if there's anything that they're interested in, or if there's something that they would share with their children. I am not your babysitter. I have already done that with the template that YouTube provides, and no further discussion is necessary. And let's go to the next one. What is your #1 favorite Western movie of all time? This is a great question, but it's a little tricky to answer for me. My number one favorite movie of all time is The Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn. And as far as the Westerns go, boy, I have a list of, gosh, I think it must be 250 Westerns now that I consider to be either historically important or great movies. And that list came out of a conversation I had many years ago with a film director and screenwriter named Burt Kennedy. I've talked about him before. He was cool. It was cool that he let me interview him. So, you know, I can't just pick one Western, but most of the main ones that come to mind, Tombstone with Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer is always at the top of everybody's list. Rio Bravo, John Wayne, Dean Martin, Winchester 73 with Jimmy Stewart, Shane with Alan Ladd, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Clint Eastwood, which is actually that's a Civil War movie. Clint Eastwood's Hang 'em High, High Plains Drifter, and so forth. Audie Murphy films, Randolph Scott, The Tall T, Ride Lonesome, all that stuff. See what I mean? There's just too many for the Westerns, but it's a great question, so I tried to answer that. And finally, how many rare books do you have in your collection, and which one is the most valuable? This is a good question, and I've talked about collecting a lot because my channel is about collecting as well as reading and all that. I'm not really sure which book I have has the highest value on the aftermarket. I can tell you I have several books signed by actor Errol Flynn. One of them was his own book. The other was a book that he owned, and he wrote his name in it when he lent it to somebody. And I have an Edgar Rice Burroughs that's probably very valuable. 1923, I think it's War Chief. I have that in a lockbox. Stuff like that. I have stuff that's valuable to me, but it may not have a monetary value. For example, I have numerous books signed by Robert Nathan, the author of Portrait of Jenny and The Bishop's Wife. I've talked about him. I have an episode about him. I collect Robert Nathan. So I don't really know. I would suspect maybe the Errol Flynn and the Edgar Rice Burroughs. I have a lot of Bradbury's. He signed for me when I met him. Gosh, you know what? There's so many, I really don't know. So maybe what I'll do in the future is I'll do an episode about signed books. And I'll go through some of the signed books that I have. And maybe you know more about them than I do. I have a Jack Schaefer, for example, author of Shane. But I don't have Shane. I have his collected short stories signed by Jack Schaefer. Great question. So I'm not really sure. So I'll think about doing an episode on signed books. I do have a lot of vintage stuff. When I'm done with this, I'll probably think of 5 more that I could have told you about that are really, really important books. But I don't even know how many signed books I have. I think I have over 100, 125, something like that. I think the last signed book that I bought would be, gosh, probably a James Lee Burke. And the signed books are extremely rare. So some of them are, but I have modern stuff too. So, but the question was rare books. The rare books, I have stuff from the 1890s, and they're not worth that much because the market has changed. You know, the Bantam Shadow books by Maxwell Grant, aka Walter Gibson, are they sell for $20 to $30 each now. So they're not really rare, but they're expensive. They're valuable. So when you're talking about the value of books, that's really an interesting topic. And again, maybe I'll do a different episode addressing some of those issues. Vintage paperbacks right now are extremely valuable, and when you're buying them on eBay, you'll see what I'm looking at. Look for some Harry Whittingtons on eBay and see what the prices are like, you know. So it depends. You know, if you're thinking thousands of dollars, yeah, I have a couple that I'm no question that I have a couple of books that are worth several $1,000s, but not that many. Most of them would be in the hundreds. And then the paperbacks, I have hundreds of paperbacks that are worth $20-$30 each, you know. So great question, hard to answer. So that was it. And that's fine. I didn't need to have a lot of questions. I just thought I'd put that out there as a different type of episode. So with that said, I would like to point something out. In recent months on YouTube here, I've been seeing a lot of camaraderie between my viewers and the comment coming in, and for me and my channel, but also for other channels that I follow. And that's really heartwarming to see, and I'm glad to see it. So thank you for that. You know, I'm going to discuss a little bit more in November. On my birthday, I have a special episode I'm going to put out, and I'm going to talk about various things and give you a little more insight into what I'm trying to do here and what I may or may not do in the future. But the camaraderie is something that is rare in this day and age, so thank you very much. And I wanted to end this episode with a quote from the great Edith Wharton. I've talked about her before. She is a great writer. I love Edith Wharton's books. This is a quote from Edith Wharton. "There are two ways of spreading light: to be the candle or the mirror that reflects it. Lately, my friends, you people have been the light. Thank you very much for that. Stay well, stay happy, feed your brain, read a book."